I stood at my mother Amanda's funeral watching my father Thomas as he leaned on his new wife Veronica for support. They had married just 8 months after Mom's cancer diagnosis. I was 20 just months away from receiving the inheritance my mother had set up for me. Nobody knew it then, but Veronica had already begun plotting. As my 21st birthday approached, I noticed her behavior changing. The looks she gave me when my father wasn't watching. The whispers on the phone. I never imagined she would destroy everything with one terrible lie. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had someone betray your trust so badly you thought you would never recover. My childhood before everything fell apart was actually pretty normal. My mother Amanda was the center of our family, a warm and loving presence who made our house feel like a real home. Dad worked long hours at his engineering firm, but Mom was always there with fresh-baked cookies when I got home from school. We lived in a comfortable suburb outside of Philadelphia, nothing extravagant, but we never wanted for anything. Every summer, we would take a 2-week vacation to Cape May. Staying in the same beachfront rental. Those are some of my most treasured memories, building sandcastles with Mom while Dad grilled burgers on the deck. Everything changed when I turned 17. Mom started having these headaches that would not go away. Then she began forgetting small things like appointments or grocery items. We all thought it was just stress until she collapsed in the kitchen one afternoon while making dinner. The diagnosis came back quickly and brutally: glioblastoma, an aggressive brain tumor. The doctors gave her 18 months at best. Our world shattered overnight. Dad took it especially hard. He had always been the more stoic parent, but I would hear him crying in their bedroom late at night when he thought I was asleep. He started attending a support group for spouses of cancer patients at the hospital. That is where he met Veronica. She was there because her husband was battling pancreatic cancer, or at least that is what she told everyone. I later found out he had actually died 2 years earlier, and she just kept attending the groups. Veronica appeared in our lives like some kind of emotional vulture. She was always bringing casseroles over or offering to drive Mom to appointments. I was grateful at first, we all were. Dad especially seemed to rely on her, calling her at all hours for advice or just to talk. I was too consumed with my own grief and finishing high school to notice how quickly their relationship was evolving. Just 8 months after Mom's diagnosis, Dad announced they were getting married. Mom was still alive, increasingly bedridden, but fully aware of what was happening. I was furious and confronted Dad in private, asking him how he could do this while Mom was dying down the hall. He claimed Mom had given her blessing, that she wanted him to be happy and not alone after she was gone. When I asked Mom about it, she just gave me a sad smile and said, "Sometimes people make decisions out of fear, Channing. Your father is terrified of being alone. I want you to try to understand." They had a small civil ceremony. 3 months later, Mom died. On her last coherent day, she squeezed my hand and made me promise to finish college. "I have made sure you will be okay financially. Channing," she whispered, "the trust is ironclad. When you turn 21, you will have the resources to build whatever life you want. Just promise me you will use it wisely." After the funeral, we all tried to establish a new normal. I enrolled in the local community college, not ready to move away from home yet. Veronica redecorated our house within weeks, removing most traces of Mom. Dad did not seem to notice or care. He was like a shadow of himself going through the motions. I tried to be understanding, remembering what Mom had said about fear driving his decisions. For the first year, things were tense, but manageable with Veronica. She was not openly hostile, just distant and clearly uninterested in being any kind of mother figure to me. She was 42 to my father's 47, with a daughter named Jessica, who occasionally visited but lived in another state. The first sign of trouble came when I accidentally overheard Veronica on the phone in the kitchen. I had come home early from class, and she didn't hear me enter. "Of course, I'm going to access the family money, Diane," she was saying with a laugh. "Why do you think I put up with the kid Thomas is wrapped around my finger?" But apparently the first wife set up some trust for the son. "I'm working on that angle." I backed away silently, my heart pounding. That night I went through some of Mom's old papers stored in boxes in my closet. That is when I discovered the details of my inheritance. Mom had left her entire personal fortune, about $1.2 million from her family money and life insurance and trust, for me to receive when I turned 21. Dad had been excluded except for their joint assets and the house which he already owned. The trust was professionally managed by Mom's longtime attorney, Mr. Goldstein. As the months passed, I noticed Veronica's spending habits getting increasingly lavish. New jewelry, designer clothes, a luxury car to replace her perfectly functional sedan. Dad never questioned any of it, even when I saw him looking worried while reviewing bank statements. I confronted Veronica about the conversation I had overheard. Big mistake. She turned it around on me, immediately claiming I had misheard or was making things up because I resented her. When Dad came home, she was in tears, saying I'd accused her of being a gold digger. That was the first major argument where Dad unequivocally took her side. "Your mother would be ashamed of how you are treating Veronica," he said, words that cut me to the core. From that point forward, Veronica became increasingly bold in her campaign against me. Small things at first, like forgetting to tell me about family dinner plans or throwing away mail addressed to me. Then she started telling Dad I had been disrespectful to her when he wasn't around, recounting arguments that never happened. Dad always believed her. My 19th and 20th years were a slow-motion nightmare. I tried to focus on college, but my grades suffered as home life became increasingly hostile. Friends stopped coming over because Veronica would make them uncomfortable, questioning them about their families and making odd insinuations about my character. "Channing has such a vivid imagination," she would say with a laugh that contained no humor. "He gets so angry sometimes, I worry about him." I made multiple attempts to connect with Dad alone. I would invite him to lunch or to watch a ball game, anything to get him away from her influence. But Veronica always found a way to insert herself or to create some emergency that required his immediate attention right before we were supposed to meet. The gaslighting became so persistent, I started keeping a journal documenting every interaction, afraid I might actually start believing her version of reality. One particularly disturbing incident occurred when I came home to find Veronica wearing one of Mom's old necklaces, a family heirloom that was supposed to be set aside for me. When I politely asked about it, she claimed Mom had personally given it to her before dying. I knew this was impossible, as Mom had specifically shown me the necklace in its case and told me it would be part of my inheritance. When I brought this up to Dad, Veronica burst into tears, claiming I was calling her a thief. Dad ordered me to apologize. About 6 months before my 21st birthday, Veronica's daughter Jessica moved into our house. Jessica was 25 and supposedly between jobs, though I never saw her actively looking for employment. She and Veronica were inseparable, often whispering together and going silent when I entered a room. Jessica treated the house like a hotel, leaving messes for others to clean up and borrowing my belongings without asking. I started noticing financial documents disappearing from Dad's home office. When I mentioned this to him, suggesting perhaps Jessica might have been snooping, he exploded in anger. "Those girls are the only ones who care about me. You are just like your mother, always suspicious, always thinking the worst of people." It was the first time he had ever compared me unfavorably to Mom, and it felt like a physical blow. Desperate and increasingly isolated, I contacted Mr. Goldstein, Mom's attorney, who managed my trust. I explained the situation and asked if there was any way Veronica could access my inheritance or prevent me from receiving it. He assured me the trust was ironclad, but advised me to be cautious. "Family dynamics can be complicated," he said. "Sometimes people do desperate things when money is involved." How prophetic those words would prove to be. The week before my 21st birthday, tensions reached unprecedented levels. Veronica began making veiled threats, comments like, "You never know what might happen, plans change, and your father can still update his will, you know." I documented everything, even managing to record some of her more threatening statements on my phone when she didn't realize I was there. One night, I overheard Veronica and Jessica talking in the kitchen. "We need to do something drastic," Veronica was saying. "Once he gets that money, he will turn Thomas against us. You know how manipulative he can be." Jessica agreed, suggesting they find a way to discredit him completely before the birthday. I slept with my bedroom door locked that night, genuinely afraid of what they might do. The morning of my 21st birthday arrived with an eerie calm. I had an appointment with Mr. Goldstein at 11 o'clock to sign the final paperwork that would release my inheritance. I left early for a quick breakfast with my friend Kyle, one of the few people who understood what I had been going through. Once this is done, you should consider moving out, Kyle advised. Get your own place, maybe transfer to a school further away. This situation is toxic. I agreed. My plan was to sign the paperwork, secure the funds, and then look for an apartment immediately. I had already researched several options within my price range. The thought of finally escaping Veronica's psychological warfare gave me the first sense of hope I had felt in years. I returned home around 10 to change clothes before the meeting. I had hoped everyone would be out, but Veronica was there alone, sitting at the kitchen table with an odd expression on her face. Jessica's car was gone from the driveway. Big day for you, Veronica said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. 21. Officially a man now. Yes, I replied cautiously, moving toward the stairs. I have an appointment soon, so I need to get ready. With the trust attorney, I assume. She stood up, blocking my path. Your father is very hurt you didn't invite him to come along. Very hurt indeed. That was a lie. I had specifically asked Dad 2 days prior if he wanted to join me, and he had declined, saying it was between me and Mom's estate. I did invite him, I said firmly. He said he couldn't make it. Veronica's smile disappeared. Are you calling me a liar? Channing. In my own home? It's still my home too, I said, trying to stay calm. And I'm just stating a fact. Now please, I need to get ready. What happened next occurred so quickly I barely had time to process it. Veronica suddenly lunged forward, grabbing her own wrist and wrenching it violently. Then she slapped herself hard across the face with her free hand. The sound echoed in the kitchen like a gunshot. What are you doing? I gasped, backing away in horror. She smiled, then a terrifying expression of triumph. You should go now. Your father will be home soon, and he will find me like this. What do you think he will believe happened? The son, who has been increasingly hostile and resentful, attacked his stepmother on the day he comes into a fortune. Or the loving wife, who has stood by him through everything. I grabbed my keys and fled, understanding instantly what she was doing, but powerless to stop it. My hands shook so badly I could barely drive. I called Dad repeatedly as I headed toward his office, hoping to reach him before Veronica did. Every call went straight to voicemail. When I arrived at his engineering firm, I was met in the parking lot by 2 police officers and my father, whose face was contorted with a rage I had never seen before. Is this him? One officer asked my father. Dad nodded, not even looking at me. That's him. The officers explained that they were responding to a domestic violence call. According to the report, I had violently assaulted my stepmother when she confronted me about stealing from the family. Veronica claimed I had twisted her arm and struck her repeatedly when she threatened to tell my father about money missing from their joint account. Dad, that is insane, I protested. I never touched her. She did this to herself. I was only home for 5 minutes. This is about the inheritance. Don't you see? For a moment something flickered in his eyes, a brief hesitation. Then his face hardened again. My wife has bruises, Channing. She is terrified. She has no reason to make this up. She has 1.2 million reasons, I shouted, desperate to make him understand. He stepped close to me, then his voice low and trembling with anger. You are no longer my son. Do not come to my house. Do not contact me or Veronica again. Whatever your mother left you, take it and disappear from our lives. The officers didn't arrest me that day, lacking sufficient evidence beyond Veronica's statement. But a temporary restraining order was issued, preventing me from coming within 500 feet of the house or Veronica. Criminal charges were filed the next day, though they would eventually be dropped for lack of evidence. I missed my appointment with Mr. Goldstein. When I finally reached him by phone and explained what had happened, he was alarmed but not entirely surprised. This complicates things, he said. We can still process the trust distribution, but if criminal charges are pending, there might be a temporary freeze until things are resolved legally. And so began 7 years of struggle. I was effectively homeless that first week, sleeping in my car and then on Kyle's couch. The criminal investigation dragged on for months before the charges were finally dismissed. By then, Veronica had convinced my father to file additional civil actions against me, claiming emotional distress and making bizarre accusations about stalking and threatening behavior. The legal battles drained what little savings I had. My inheritance remained frozen as various motions and appeals were filed by an expensive legal team hired by Veronica and my father. I dropped out of college, unable to focus on studies while fighting to clear my name and secure basic survival. I worked a series of minimum-wage jobs, living in shabby apartments with multiple roommates. Depression became my constant companion. There were dark times when I questioned whether life was worth continuing. The betrayal by my father cut deeper than anything Veronica had done. The turning point came 3 years into my exile. I was working at an auto repair shop, having developed an interest in mechanics through necessity, when I couldn't afford car repairs. My boss Marcus took a special interest in me, recognizing something beneath my guarded exterior. A Vietnam veteran with his own history of family estrangement, Marcus eventually offered me a partnership track in his growing business. For the first time since the false accusation, I had a path forward that didn't feel like mere survival. Then, almost exactly 7 years after that fateful birthday, I received an unexpected visitor at the shop. Jessica, Veronica's daughter, stood awkwardly by the service counter, looking nothing like the entitled young woman who had once made my life miserable. "I need to talk to you," she said. "About my mother. About what really happened." Jessica and I sat in a coffee shop across from the auto garage. 7 years had changed her dramatically. Gone were the designer clothes, and haughty attitude replaced by simple jeans and a haunted expression. "Mom and I had a falling out 3 years ago," she explained, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. "She accused me of stealing money from her. The irony, right? After everything she did to you." I remained silent, unwilling to show any reaction that might spook her. After 7 years of hell, I knew this might be my only chance to learn the truth. "The thing is," Jessica continued, "I did take money from her, but only what was rightfully mine from my dad's life insurance that she had been keeping from me. When I confronted her, she went ballistic. Just like with you, she threatened to call the police, claim I attacked her. That is when I realized everything you had said was probably true. Why come to me now?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Jessica reached into her bag and pulled out a small USB drive. "Because I found this last week when helping Dad Thomas clean out their storage unit. They are divorcing, by the way. She cheated on him with his business partner." She slid the drive across the table. "It is all here. Mom's emails planning the whole thing. Voice recordings of her practicing what she would tell the police. Even photos she took of herself applying makeup to look like bruises before she added the real ones." I stared at the small device, hardly daring to believe it. "Why did you save all this?" "I did not. Mom did. She is pathological about documenting everything, keeping evidence against everyone in case she ever needs leverage. I guess she forgot about this drive when she moved her things to the new storage unit." Jessica looked down ashamed. "I was part of her plan against you. I want you to know that I am sorry. I was young and stupid and completely under her spell. I believed everything she said about you being dangerous and manipulative." I took the drive, still suspicious. This might be some elaborate trap. "What do you want in return for this?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Use it however you want. I just thought you deserved to know the truth, and maybe your dad does too." I spent 3 days verifying the contents of the drive, working with a computer specialist friend to authenticate the timestamps and metadata of each file. There was no doubt about it, the evidence was real and damning. Emails, where Veronica explicitly discussed her plan to remove the obstacle of Amanda's brat before he could turn Thomas against us with his inheritance. Voice memos where she coached Jessica on what to say to police if questioned. Most damning of all, a video she had apparently recorded accidentally while setting up her phone to take photos of her self-inflicted injuries. Clearly, showing her applying makeup bruises, while saying Thomas will believe anything I tell him about the boy, he always does. With this evidence in hand, I contacted Mr. Goldstein, who was nearing retirement but still practiced law. He was stunned by what I showed him and immediately recommended a criminal attorney specializing in fraud and defamation. Together, we built a meticulous case. Rather than rushing to confront my father or Veronica, we took our time gathering additional evidence, taking depositions from former household staff and neighbors who had witnessed Veronica's behavior, even tracking down Veronica's ex-friends who had fallen out with her over the years and were eager to share their experiences. 4 months after Jessica's visit, we were ready. My attorney arranged a meeting with my father at his office, not revealing the full purpose. Dad arrived looking older than his 54 years, the stress of his failing marriage evident in the new lines on his face. When he saw me there, he nearly walked out, but curiosity kept him in place. 5 minutes, he said coldly. That is all you get. We used those 5 minutes to play the video of Veronica staging her injuries. As the footage rolled, I watched my father's face transform from skepticism to shock to utter devastation. When it ended, he sat in complete silence, his hands trembling slightly. There is more, my attorney said gently. Much more. For the next hour, we presented the evidence piece by piece. Emails, audio recordings, financial records showing how Veronica had systematically drained his accounts while fighting to block my inheritance. Testimony from Jessica about her mother's elaborate plan to frame me. When we finished, Dad put his head in his hands. I need to see Veronica, he finally said. My attorney advised against a confrontation, but Dad insisted. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, with both attorneys present. Veronica arrived with her lawyer, unaware of what was waiting for her. Her confident smile vanished when she saw me sitting beside my father. The meeting was both terrible and vindicating. At first, Veronica denied everything, calling the evidence fabricated. Then, when presented with the video, she claimed she had been forced to protect herself from my violent tendencies. But as each new piece of evidence was presented, her story fell apart. Her own lawyer looked increasingly uncomfortable. Finally cornered and desperate, she snapped. Fine, I did it. He was going to take everything with that inheritance. Thomas was so obsessed with his precious first wife and her precious son. That money should have been ours. Dad stood up then, his voice ice cold. I want you out of my house by tomorrow. My lawyer will be in touch about divorce proceedings. The look Veronica gave me was pure hatred. You think you have won. You have nothing. 7 years of your life gone. And for what? He will never really believe you. He will never really choose you. But she was wrong. The evidence was incontrovertible. Within weeks, the temporary freezes on my inheritance were lifted. With interest accrued over 7 years, the trust had grown to nearly $1.8 million. Veronica faced multiple civil suits and potential criminal charges for fraud, perjury, and filing false police reports. The rebuilding of my life happened in careful stages. First came financial security as the inheritance finally reached my accounts after 7 years of legal limbo. Mr. Goldstein retired shortly after telling me that seeing justice in my case was a fitting capstone to his career. My relationship with my father was more complicated. After the confrontation with Veronica, he made repeated attempts to reconcile, calling daily and sending letters filled with apologies. I kept my distance at first, the wounds still too fresh, despite the vindication. I understand if you cannot forgive me, he wrote in one letter. I failed you in every way a father can fail a son. I choose to believe your mother would want me to spend whatever years I have left trying to make amends, even if that means respecting your wish for distance. Veronica faced severe consequences for her actions. The divorce left her with virtually nothing, as their prenuptial agreement included a morality clause. Criminal charges for filing false police reports resulted in probation and community service. Most satisfying of all, her reputation was destroyed when the story became public. The same social circles that had embraced her as the devoted wife of a grieving widower now shunned her completely. I used part of my inheritance to establish a scholarship fund for children who had lost parents to cancer, naming it after my mother. The first recipient was a 17-year-old girl whose situation eerily paralleled my own, though thankfully without the malevolent step-parent. Helping her afford college became one of my most meaningful accomplishments. Through volunteer work with the Scholarship Foundation, I met Sarah, a compassionate social worker, who specialized in helping young adults navigate grief and family trauma. Our connection was immediate and profound. After 2 years of dating, we married in a small ceremony by the ocean in Cape May. My father serving as best man in a gesture of reconciliation that would have made my mother proud. The healing process was not linear. I worked with a therapist to process the complex trauma of betrayal, false accusation, and abandonment. There were setbacks and moments when old anger would surface unexpectedly, but gradually I found my way toward, if not forgiveness, then at least understanding. Dad and I established a cautious new relationship. We meet for lunch once a month, carefully avoiding certain topics while rebuilding trust through small, consistent actions. He sold the house that held so many painful memories and moved to a modest condo closer to my auto repair business, which had expanded to 3 locations with Marcus as my mentor and partner. Jessica and I occasionally exchange emails. She moved across the country to escape her mother's influence, building a life as an elementary school teacher. Her journey toward redemption parallels my own healing in many ways. The inheritance that caused so much drama ultimately proved less important than the lessons learned through losing and regaining it. Money can provide security and opportunities, but it cannot heal relationships or provide meaning. The real inheritance my mother left me was her example of grace under pressure, her belief in looking for the good in people while still maintaining healthy boundaries. 7 years of exile taught me to value authenticity above all else. I surround myself now with people who show up consistently, who speak truth even when it is difficult, who choose integrity over convenience. My mother would be proud of the man I have become, not because of financial success or status, but because I refuse to let bitterness define me. If you have ever experienced betrayal by someone you trusted completely, you know the special kind of pain it brings. The questioning of your own judgment, the hesitation to trust again. But I am living proof that healing is possible, that truth eventually finds its way to light, and that the human capacity for resilience is nearly limitless. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after a major betrayal? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that justice, though sometimes delayed, does eventually come. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes our hardest chapters lead to our greatest transformations.